Bellissimo doll.
Yeah.
You're looking very good considering the week we just had. Let me begin this by saying this is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Doll, and Simon Slater, our producer. And today's guests are ourselves because it is our 2-year, 104 episode anniversary. Whoa, break out the party favors.
Tis. And we just came back from a pretty insane week, Lydia. It was a lot of. Well, it wasn't just the week that we had. It was also upon arrival after basically the whole world being shut down for 15 months, and all of a sudden the floodgates opened, and we had parties and concerts and movie showings.
Well, let's review. I mean, we had the opening of Beth B's documentary on me, "The War Is Never Over," in New York at the IFC. They've just extended it, by the way, which is great news.
So that's a great news. That means it did very well.
I guess.
Bottom line, yeah.
Anything is better than nothing after being shut down for a year and a half. So that was fun, and then we had the after party.
Oh, that went very late.
We had a great time.
Kind of knocked Simon out for a while.
Knocked me out for about a week.
Simon, you're not a road dog like we are.
I had a really good time, but staying up till going to work was a terrible idea.
I consider going to sleep work because I hardly ever get there. But then we also had 2 rehearsals for the Retrovirus show in the boiling, baking, sub-Saharan heat.
Yeah, in Hoboken. But it was air conditioned in there. But we had, they were sandwiched into a sold out show, which would have and could have been 2 sold out shows, I believe, if they had given us 2 nights. I guess they just didn't realize it was going to be that jam packed and
also 4th of July weekend. But I have to say, TVI is one of the nicer clubs I think I've been in.
Especially in New York, yeah.
It's really lovely. And also, it was great that they made some recipes from my cookbook. And some of the proceeds are going to a foundation, which my friend Zora has founded for the education of Afghani street children. That was amazing because I'm not profiting off the meals anyway, but it's great that TVI and the chef there suggested donations. I thought that was really fantastic.
Yeah. After the show, I mean, it was a little weird. It was jam packed in there, and I just kind of stayed because we had the backstage, and then we had the green room that had a bar in it. I kind of stayed there. I wasn't shy. I'm not a shy person, but I don't know. I just wasn't into going and hanging out with 250 fucking 300 people.
Well, there weren't that many backstage, but Tim, I have to top you once again, and that's that. You know that I'm usually the last man standing, but this time I was the last of 2 other people. That would be Joseph Keckler and Zora at the club. They literally shut the gate on us as we were outside. Now
you must have been outside because what happened was I had to load up my car with my gear. But I came back in. I was with Weasel, and I was like, I guess everyone left. So you guys must have been outside because
we were first still in the VIP room, and then they shooed us out, and we were sitting. A very New York tradition, as far as I go. We were on the stoop, stooping, and we were literally the last to leave. And then I came back to my place with Zora, and we were up till, as usual, 7. It was a good time.
Yeah, well, yes, it was very
That's the
late.
way it was the way things used to be.
Yeah, that was very late for me too, or probably around that. And so, yep, and then that was a Friday. So then Saturday, I forget what I did. I was kind of recovering, and then it was Sunday,
4th of July,
which I went to Coney Island, saw the hot dog eating contest.
Tim, you never fail me.
Joey Chestnut, world record
once again.
World record, 76 hot dogs with buns in 10 minutes.
He beat his own record.
He beat his own record. Yeah, he destroyed everyone there because Kobayashi's not even in it. But they didn't do it at Nathan's, which was always a clusterfuck. It was always super hot, and everyone standing in the street crammed in. They did it at the Cyclones baseball field, which is 2 blocks away, and it was the most comfortable experience I had witnessing this thing. It was one of the dumbest things ever. I mean, and you had people cheering and all stuff. But then what I did is I walked on the boardwalk and ran into my friend Peter Evans at Tatiana.
Peter Evans, one of the most amazing trumpet players on the planet.
Living, yes.
Living.
That's so you about a half hour boardwalk walk from Coney Island, you get to Brighton Beach and you have all the Russian, Ukrainian kind of cafe bars right there on the boardwalk. So we went there, had some drinks, and observed the scumbags.
Tim, I'm not nostalgic, but when I hear the word the cyclone, now I love those ratchety old wooden roller coasters.
Well, those are a lot more thrilling than the high-tech loop-de-loop ones they have.
So you
now.
go fast on the loop-de-loop. I like the ratchety feeling. I like when things are like rocking under my backside, honey.
Yeah,
I like that
creaking.
feeling. Oh, creaking. I love it.
Creaking.
It's just not the same. I don't know. I guess maybe because there's no real acid anymore. And why would I ride the cyclone if I wasn't tripping balls, as Tim Dahl likes to occasionally say?
After that, I had Sam and Erne. They grilled Italian sausages and steak. Then we all went over to Sam's roof of his studio / warehouse loft thing, and we got roof access and got to see not just the Macy's fireworks. We saw the Jersey City fireworks, and then all the local confiscated cop-owned illegal fireworks, and then just regular people illegally smuggled in fireworks. All the neighborhood ones you could see from there. So it was a big fireworks night.
Since your invitation to the fireworks came so late to me, I just decided to have my own mini explosions at my own house, which was rather successful. Thank you very much. We don't need to go into any further details about that. That'll be volume 2 of my memoirs.
But anyhow, that night, I think that was the final. So I'm still recovering. I'm feeling fine now, but it was a couple of days. I was like, okay, because I had played with Azumi OE at that little mini fest, the Polite Fest, the Saturday before. So basically, it was like the last 10 days was just like.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that, Tim, because that's one of the projects you've been doing during the pandemic. So why don't you explain to people that have you not seen it yet, but I know you're going to be posting some videos soon, exactly what that is. Let me just say, I think it's really beautiful and moving, very almost threateningly gorgeous. And I'll just give my description and then you can fill it in. Imagine a dimly lit black box with scaffolding lit as if there might be an axe murderer coming out. And instead, a very lithe, lean beyond Buto dancer comes out to the sounds that I can only describe as beyond psychoambience that are rumbling from your masterful bass. Now,
yes. So basically, also during this pandemic, I did a solo album, which is going to come out soon. I'll let everyone know about it. But I had seen Grid was playing once in Bushwick, and she did a performance. I was like, oh, this person's pretty interesting. And so then after the 2019 child abuse tour of Europe, we had a record release party at St. Vitus, but we kind of were so slow to it, and St. Vitus was booked up. So they said, we can only have an afternoon matinee show. And I said, well, why don't we have an all kids one, since our band's child abuse? So basically all of our friends who are now moms and dads who hadn't seen us in years could finally come out and see us. But I said, well, why don't I'm gonna call Azumi OE, this Buto dancer, and see if she wants to do a duo with Tomeo, who I play with in a trio, and then I also had Carbon play. Anyhow, in short, in the pandemic, this is 2020, just a month after the 30,000 people died in the New York area, and just as the Black Lives Matter protests and looting, or whatever, how you want to define all that, kind of was tapering down a little bit. She contacted me because she's also a TV editor, film editor. She goes, I have access to this soundstage performance dance theater, and I have all my friends who haven't worked, who have camera drones and all that stuff. Why don't we do a duo? And I'd never worked with her, but yeah, we knew each other. I said, sure. And when it happened, and it just you know how that works, Lydia. It's just like sometimes you collaborate and it clicks. And sometimes it doesn't.
Well, no. Every time I collaborate, it clicks. But this, it's true because I just know how to pick them, including you.
Fair.
But I mean, that really clicked because it takes what you do somewhere else, and I think it also musically illustrates what she's doing, and also with the lighting and some architecture. It's really really gorgeous.
So for people who know Buto, it's a very kind of post World War II Japanese expression of basically destroying all traditions, almost nihilist approach to dance.
It's kind of the dance of death and life.
And so she would tour with a major company under a master, and she became a master. And so then she was always, in Japan, they're really into categorization and all that stuff, if I may generalize. And she, she was approaching like Merzbow and a lot of the noise guys in Japan. They're like, no, Buto's separate, blah, blah, blah. So she started just knocking on the door of some of the musicians here, because she lives here. I said, sure, why not? And who am I to be so rigid?
Well, Tim, you are the least rigid person I know.
Well, what I'm getting at is because we're already
besides myself.
Well, I'm like, okay, we're gonna pursue some grants and all stuff, but you'd be shocked. Dance and music have been put together since the beginning of both, and you'd be shocked. Both worlds are like, I don't know if we want to combine these things. It's like, well I'm gonna if I can combine these things.
And it brings me to somebody we're going to have on the show soon, which is my friend Vanessa Sconce, who in Seattle has her own the Psychomachia Theater. And I met her in Washington, D.C. many decades ago. And it's interesting. Remember how Matilda June, when we were speaking to her a few weeks ago, she said I walked off the stage and into the audience and plucked her. And the same with Vanessa Sconce, who I met in Washington, D.C., front row of one of my shows years ago. And I knew she had volumes of great writing. She moved to Brooklyn, where I was living. We began doing spoken word shows together. I produced a record of hers called Pariah. And then we both moved to New Orleans, where she started studying extreme yoga, voodoo, and Buto. And now she's gone and is very masterful in Buto. And that came out of, other arts. And she, to me, the most amazing combination is when she did mix voodoo dance with Buto. It's amazing. And so Vanessa Sconce, she's got a lot of videos online too. And I'm trying to get these two gals together.
Oh yeah, and we should. And I'm also I'm going to contact what's his name in Switzerland, because there's a lot of dance there as well.
Right, exactly. That's one of the things we've got cooking.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that we're doing.
Well, we also have.
Lydia's about to do a whole West Coast kind of spoken word accompanied by the showings, the screenings of her films. So that's touring around the world right now.
Well, yeah. All right. Let me just sum it up. I mean, it's good to be back on the road because we are road dogs. So first of all, I'll be in Los Angeles and San Francisco at the end of July, showing the film and doing shows. I'll be doing a show with Sylvia Black in LA at the Moroccan Room, and Adele Bertay and Lisa from the Bell Rays, who we recorded recently. And then I'm going to San Francisco performing with Eugene Robinson. And also somebody that we're going to have on the show this coming week, which is Bob Calhoun, who wrote a book called The Murders That Made Us. How hoodlums, mob bosses, serial killers, cult leaders influenced San Francisco in the past 170 years. So that's something that's coming up. And also Retrovirus is going on tour in September. Yes, amen, through the middle of the country. Then I go to Europe and do a variety of things for quite a while, as well as The War's Never Over showing. So this year is picking up, but we have not been slack in the previous year.
Yeah.
For instance, we recorded, Grit and myself, a psychoambient album with spoken word. I recorded an album with Sylvia Black. Who knows when these will see the light of day. But in the meantime, every week, we've been on the horn.
We'll be here.
Well, every week for the past 2 years.
Yes.
We've been entertaining not only ourselves, but who's ever listening. And we've had some incredible guests. I want to bring Simon into this, who was the cattle prodder of this project, and ask Simon who he thinks his personal favorites were in this 104 episode 2-year anniversary of the Lydian Spin with Tim Dolan, Simon Slater.
I'm glad you asked that, because Tim and I earlier were talking about this, and it's a big list at this point. I mean, we are over 100 guests. I thought Dennis Dunaway was a great guest.
Of Alice Cooper, yes.
Of Alice Cooper, I thought he told some great stories, especially about their early days. Like sleeping in a park in Los Angeles and then driving back to Arizona. I thought he was great. I thought
very gracious and very funny.
Absolutely.
And to me, I'm just going to finish with Dennis Dunaway. To me, it was a pleasure because I had covered Black Juju for more than a decade. And also as a 13, 14-year-old, I mean, Alice Cooper was, top 3 in my book, early until $1 Billion Babies. I had to cut it off. Then got kind of sucky, but whatever.
That was 66. We started migrating. Okay. It's hard to believe that we did this, but that's how young we were. We all jumped in a van and drove to LA, and we didn't have enough money between us to get a hotel room. So we slept in Griffith Park on the park bench.
Nice.
Yeah. And in the morning, we're like, well, we should go try to find some food. And we're walking down the hill. We're still in the park. And we come to this little parking lot, and there's a guy with a sandwich truck, sandwiches fresh daily. And he's standing there throwing out the previous day's sandwiches into the garbage bin. And we go up, looking all
hungry.
Yeah, skinny. And finally he goes, go ahead, just take them. And we moved in like locusts.
Dennis Dunaway is still rocking hard with Blue Coupe.
Yeah, I thought he was great. And I don't want to stick to only rockers, but another personable and great interview was Wayne Kramer.
Wayne Kramer is such a, at least as far as I could tell from the interview, such a moral and ethical person.
Well, and Wayne Kramer of the MC5, for those who don't know, and we've had him on a couple of months ago. Go ahead, Tim.
Again, with rockers, they have their music and their rock and roll lives, but he goes beyond that and he gives back as he does. What is it called? Well,
it's a project where he actually does benefits, or there's a record coming out, actually a cover album of the MC5 that is done by our booking agent, Joey Killingsworth. Every year they do a cover album for a different charity. And this one that's coming out, which also Lisa the Bell Raise on, I'm on, various other people, is for Wayne Kramer's charity, which is to bring guitars into prisons.
Yeah. So he, and what really touched me about that is not all these people who are incarcerated who are going to be playing these guitars and making music are going to become professional musicians when they leave jail, and hopefully leave jail. It's what blew my mind, and I guess it was obvious, but is that basically so few of these people ever experienced in their youth just putting something together and just seeing it realized, even like a song, just the most basic thing, and how you could just see in their faces how just they open up that they actually could work with someone, maybe even someone they don't even like or think they don't like, and then make a connection, plan for it, and then realize it down the road and just see it unfold in front of them. That alone, it opens up so many new avenues for someone just going back into the world, usually very terrified and unprepared. So it's just such a huge thing.
It just goes back to what I always like to say, that art is the salve to the universal wound, whether it's music or literature or paintings. I mean, that's why people create. And that's why any kind of creation that anyone does, it doesn't have to be professional, is something that, helps you to realize yourself and to focus on, what's really important, to try to get something out, to try to make something, to go beyond yourself sometimes even, or go really far deeply in. You got to go in to get out. Now that's Genesis, not me. And you have to realize I did listen to a few of their albums when I was very young. That hasn't been recent. How about John Tottenham?
Well, of course, I put him on my list.
All right, John Tottenham, the most depressing yet hilarious poet. If anybody knows who Stephen Wright is, he's kind of the Stephen Wright of poetry. Maybe it's time for you to read us a little poem. That would be fantastic right now, actually. This is from your new book called The Hate Poems, which has a lovely, fluffy little kitten on the cover, which just speaks volumes to the contrary nature of John Tottenham, my favorite poet.
I seemed to have always been the same age. Then I looked in the mirror and saw a tired and devious old man gazing warily back at me. An old man sitting alone in a room, masturbating over a memory, fantasizing about women who have forgotten about me, and brooding over deliberately missed opportunities. a shadow of my former shadow, slowly becoming invisible, turning grey. Unfortunately, nobody noticed that I never went away.
Oh, please, one begs for more. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we need an encore.
I mean, we do encore.
You want a short one?
Well, take your time, darling.
Beauty and happiness. Beauty depresses me, knowing that it's temporary. Positivity requires too much energy. And even if I were happy, I wouldn't admit it. For that would be an insult to those who are not and those who pretend to be.
Known John Tottenham for decades, love the man, and it's just amazing to me with John Tottenham because it's so bold what he does. Because if people don't know, okay, you perform for X amount of years, people begin to know who you are. They come to see who you are. They know who you are. They think they know who you are. But anyone who is not aware of him might just go, what the hell is going on with this depresso dude? Until you can't help but laugh because it's just so fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw him perform, we were all performing in
Joshua Tree.
Yeah, and I was kind of blown away. And then it's so funny because it seems like every time I go in LA, I randomly run into the guy at a bar or something. He's just kind of a fixture there.
He's running away from me because I asked him to be on the bill with Sylvia Black, Adele, and Lisa from the Bell Rays, and he's like, I won't be in town that week. I'm like, what the hell?
Where's he going to be? Yeah.
I got no idea. Go ahead, Simon, you had something to say about Tottenham.
I literally walked outside an art show I was in Los Angeles, and there he was standing there.
There's many videos of John Tottenham online. I do recommend people investigate. Another one of my favorites, which Chris Campion, one of my favorite human beings and writers,
all right,
who's also been on the early podcast, brought to us was Penny Slinger.
All right. Yep.
And for those that don't know, and it's interesting because a lot of women artists that I know did not know who Penny Slinger was because in the late 60s and early 70s, going to college in London and doing really incredible, mostly black and white photography, collages, installations, taking back women as muses from men and using herself as her own muse, filmmaker, photographer, and kind of an it girl at one point, and then just said, this is bullshit. I'm going away from this for a while, and moved off and did other things. And what's interesting is somebody who's, one generation older than I am at this point in her life, than Christian Dior. Not a fan of them, but I'm glad that they're a fan of hers and actually used her art in one of their recent runway things. I love those kind of stories of people who are, and everybody that has been on the podcast are basically people that have been relentless in their pursuit of whatever their art is, come hell or high water, audience or not.
And I didn't really know her work, so that was really nice to. I always love being exposed to new things, and I thought she was amazing.
So do I, and I really recommend. There's a documentary about her, and it's just fantastic. It's really grand.
So we did have a little kiss of death sequence of our guests. Unfortunately, rest in peace. But it was like Pat Loud, then Ricky Powell, and then Rich Keller, who did all the DMX albums. A week later, not that Rich died, but DMX died.
Well, let's just discuss who Pat Loud and Ricky Powell. So Pat Loud was the matriarch of the Loud family, who in the early 70s had the first reality TV show. And Lance Loud, who became a New York fixture, Weasel Walter loved the Mumps, which Christian Hoffman was also in. I found them a bit pop, but I loved Lance Loud. He was one of the most hilarious and sarcastic and well-fashioned people, and became kind of a Warhol underling, I guess. But Pat Loud was the matriarch and basically lived their life on TV to much, divorce and discussions. And the first gay, Lance Loud came out on TV. This is the early 70s. And we interviewed her. She was already, I think, over 90. And, we put her up and I had, now back to Ricky Powell. And it's interesting because I hadn't seen Ricky Powell. Ricky Powell was a photographer. Everybody has seen his photos because he was the photographer for the Beastie Boys, for Run DMC, for LL Cool J. And he just kind of Def Jam, and he just kind of fluked into it. And I met Ricky Powell through Vicky Galvez, another one of our guests, many, many, many years ago. And Ricky Powell, I was like, Matt Nelson and I were sitting around one night. And he goes, "Yeah, I follow Ricky Powell on Instagram." I go, "Well, text him right now and tell him you're with me and take a picture." Now, I mean, you can imagine, you can have a picture of anybody and say you're anywhere if they don't know who you are. And so he sent it to Ricky Powell, no response. I'm like, "Tell him Stuyvesant Apartments." And within 1 minute, Ricky Powell was texting me because that's where he used to live. So only if it was the number one Lydia Lounge.
That was heartbreaking though.
And then we interviewed him, and then a week, 2 weeks after we had him on the podcast, he just died. It was tragic.
Yeah,
horrible. And then Rich Keller.
Who was making, and I think did it just come out? Or he and Swiss Beats made the new. It was going to be the big DMX comeback record. All these people, all these guests. I think Snoop Dogg's on it. I think a lot. All these super. And DMX had gotten his stuff together, and then he didn't. He OD'd. I think. I don't know if it was ever officially announced, but but it was like, and of course that's
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, exactly. That was a weird sequence. Yeah.
One thing I want to say, I want to talk about the guest that I almost died on, which is Mark McCloud.
Simon Slater, our producer, did almost die, and I do love this story. And it's do you want to tell it, Simon? I've told it before.
Well, I didn't even notice what was going on because I was just plugging in podcasting equipment. We were at Mark McCloud's house.
The Acid King of San Francisco. And an amazing sculptor, and an amazing human being.
In this huge
molecule.
San Francisco. Well, no, in the San Francisco mansion where it's a museum of LSD sheets, and I'm plugging in podcast equipment next to this gigantic, I guess, copper molecule that's on a plinth, and the plinth starts moving, and the molecule almost rolls onto my back. And if it weren't for Weasel Walter jumping up and pushing the molecule back into its place,
and if it wasn't for Weasel seeing Mark McCloud's face, it's probably the fastest expression Mark McCloud's had in about 50 years. Mark McCloud kind of just like, he didn't even say it. He just reacted. Weasel caught it. Leave it to a drummer to have great timing.
Pound for pound.
And of course, Mark McCloud interview itself.
Which is on the podcast. Yeah. Wait, so Simon, you said pound for pound what?
Pound for pound, my favorite episode. A, because I survived death, and B, it's the most psychedelic episode we've ever done.
Well, pound by pound, Weasel is my favorite drummer.
Right.
Whoa, nice.
I'd say.
Well, he is a unique.
He's a pounder.
He's a unique force in the history of the drum set. Let's put it that way.
He's a unique force in the history of all music, including mine. And I
for sure
had such a good time at the Retrovirus show, and I can't wait to keep doing it. What can I say?
It was, and we're psyched to. One thing over the pandemic, I got like a flying V bass. I might have to bring that one out for the tour in the
just
September.
Because the guitar and the bass look a little silly, it's not the banana splits, kids.
No, it isn't. I might bring it as a backup, depending on the vehicle we get. All right, so by doing this with you, Lydia, you've introduced me to a lot of people who I'd never met before. Robert Williams.
Oh, lowbrow artist, king of juxtapose and of all, not only king of paintings, but king of writing. His writing that accompanies his paintings and any of his books, and they are on Amazon, are a must-have for anybody interested in just one of the most extremely articulate and weird living artist who is just relentless.
Yeah. I mean, what a cool guy, and you feel cool just being in his presence. He's actually a cool dude. He really is. I mean,
Do you remember when we were at his house and he said he had a friend who was kind of had a crush on me, and I called and left a message on his answering machine?
right.
I was trying to bait his friend into, like, I don't know, some false seduction. Well, that's typical.
Well, they're all, he and his friends are all that kind of pre-baby boomer. They're kind of like 50s greasers, and so they still have the tape answering machine. So it's really fun. Just
Really fun.
Yeah.
Well, and not to overlook Robert Williams' wife, Suzanne Williams, who's an incredible artist in her own right, really precise, geometric, incredible artist, and has managed to stay with him for God knows how many decades. They are just they're just a testament to do what you want to fucking do and just keep doing it.
And I had never met, I knew David Yao through his music. I knew his music, but I'd never met him before. So
David Yao of Jesus Lizard.
Yes. And so that was cool. That was a great interview. It was cool meeting.
One of the raunchiest dudes, as I like to describe David Yao in concert. He's like a giant living insect or the gum or spunk under a tabletop you might not want to touch, but you can't help it. You got to touch it.
Whoa.
I love David Yao. I love Jesus Lizard, Scratch Acid as well. Really fun.
So in that sequence, because we got a huge cluster of folks in LA right before the shutdown, right before we flew back to do our last show on Friday the 13th.
We had Ms. Neon, one of the most beautiful creatures on the planet, which I collaborated with a song called Cup Fucker with, and at the same time, gorgeous and talented Zachary Drucker, who, was part of Getting Transparent on TV and also does films with Michelle Handelman, another one of our guests.
Yeah. Then we had, we had the same day, we had Zoe Hansen and my friend Nanda Navai. That was a very entertaining episode. People liked it.
Well, and Zoe Hansen, who I adore.
Right.
Completely,
Everyone
absolutely adore. And, he's a great writer. And we did a lot of readings. And remember those performances we were doing at the Roxy a couple of years ago, which were amazing with Bibby Hansen and Zoe, myself, you, Weasel, somebody else I can't remember.
Well, so I also got to introduce you to some of my friends. So, you'd already met Nanda before, but Albert Olin, we got to go, who's a very successful German painter successful enough where he has multiple houses, and one being in the, I don't know, it wasn't the Hollywood Hills, but it was, it was in
Studio City,
but his neighbor's Miley Cyrus. Just say, I shouldn't even say that.
I think he should give me that house because I need to talk to Miley desperately.
Well, what was funny?
Miley seems a little bit horny right now, so I think I could. I could calm her. I could either get her really excited. I could calm that hoe down.
The reason I brought it up is because one of Miley's stalkers got the wrong address and came to Albert's house. Like you remember, it was like a couple of weeks before that, and then I don't know, it was FBI or whatever detective unit had to come and talk to him because
I don't even know I don't even know anything about that story, and it sounds so mysterious that I'll just leave it as another Tim Dahl sideline.
Good podcast episode.
Well, who, the stalker?
Well, let's go. Let's not forget, which I thought we really started the podcast with a bang when we had Kitten. One of the a living Russ Meyer superstar who was so also dignified and so understanding, really, of the path from a very young age that she wanted to forge in a time that was not that sexually progressive for women. And, also, Russ Meyer films, they're funny, but basically the women are dominating everything. So call it what you will, and face it, Kitten could just about dominate anyone or anything. She is a force of unbelievable feminine nature.
I'm trying to make a spread to your beginning here.
Oh, God, my beginning? I was 9 years old. and I lived 2 blocks from the main street where all the whorehouses and burlesque houses and bars were.
Okay.
And we would all go, all the kids barefooted, we go running. We're going into that club because they didn't have doors. They had just black curtains. And we ran in there all the way to the stage, and then they chase us out. But we got to peek at the big bosom women with the red lipstick, the big hairdos. And I said, that's who I'm going to be when I grow up.
It's amazing because that's like basically Versace's same influence was his mom, and then being in such a conservative family when he was living in, I think it was either Calabria or Sicily, the grandma would say when they walked by the brothels, keep your head down, don't look. And he had to look, and it was one of his biggest inspirations in his designs.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, so you're a barefoot child of what, 8, 9 years old?
Yes, in
running
Mexico.
into the burlesque houses and whorehouses, knowing that's your style icon, and that's what you wanted to do. Yes. And it didn't take you too long to do that,
And
honey.
I love it when they say no, I say yes.
There you go. There you go.
So you that was a great way to start the whole podcast.
It was a fun day too. It was our first episode. We had no idea what we were doing. We just sat down and did it. It was great.
Well, and also, I mean, we had Sylvia Black, who, you know, is one of the most fantastic musicians in Chanteuse, who lives in Kittens Complex. That was definitely a great time.
It was, I mean, the thing about the kitten thing is it went so well that immediately went to my head. I was like, oh, I got this. I can do this. And I think the next 3 episodes, I was kind of a little shaky, but you know, as we've done over 100 episodes, it's becoming more comfortable and more natural.
Tim, I think of you as many things. Shaky is not one of them.
Well, not shaky because of me, not because of my normal constitution. I think it's because it's performance enhancing drugs might have been a part of that equation.
So the performance enhancing drugs, you don't feel actually enhanced your performance.
Yeah, well, at the time I did.
Well,
I recorded.
Won't be fooled again.
Well, yeah.
Won't be fooled again. As I was just saying to Simon, Tim, we've had so many amazing guests.
I know.
I mean, you can't even pick your favorites. There have been so many. I mean, I was just going through the list and I'm like, where do you begin? I mean, Debbie Mazar, amazing. And I love her stories, and because she also reminds me of things that we might have done together. I can't remember. I mean, she's amazing. Kareth of Extinction Rebellion, very important person to be talking to, especially 118 in Siberia, 115 in Canada burning. I mean, just
I know,
ridiculous.
Will you introduce me to Richard Kern, which was who's obviously a figure in the doc that just came out too, and has a big role in it. In fact, cool. It's cool for me to meet some of the people that I never met before through you.
What about Chris Hanley?
I mean, Chris Hanley. Not even meeting him, just even being around his little world, including that insane horizontal glass skyscraper that he's got in the desert that he's realized. I mean, if you got anyone out there, check it up. Just look up Chris Hanley horizontal skyscraper Joshua Tree, and you're gonna be like, what the fuck?
Well, also Chris Hanley is Muse Productions, and they've done so many incredible films. Just look him up. I mean, he's really
one of your faves and one of my faves, American Psycho. It's one of my favorites.
Chris Hanley is one of my favorite people because he's just his scope of genius is so wide, from recording studios in New York in the 80s and then just taking a chance on so many diverse kinds of films. He's just amazing. And then we also, Ron Athey.
Oh, well, Ron's an incredible human being and an incredible artist. So, I mean, what else can I say?
And Ron Athey introduced me to people like Bibi Hansen, who's been on the podcast.
I didn't know that's how you met, Bibi.
Well, okay, so I was living in LA. Anyway, I started this series in LA called The Unhappy Hour. And I actually before that, though, I had got Ron Athey. He had done performances, but I think I got him to do his first straight up spoken word show. But then I was doing a series called The Unhappy Hour. And we're like, Ron, who should I get? And he said, Bibi Hansen. And Bibi Hansen being the youngest Warhol superstar, mother of Beck, good friend of mine. We've done so many shows since then. She has an 800-page memoir of her time with Warhol and her father, L. Hansen of Fluxus. Her life is just incredible. One of the most just kind and lovely people on the planet, Bibi Hansen, we've had around there. But that's why in the beginning, we always used to talk about the connective tissue, which is what this show is about, is connecting people to people they may have known or not known and giving a more personal and in-depth experience.
So I really enjoy the interview session, Zoom, whatever you want to call it, with Adele, who's getting a lot of press right now with her new book.
Whose new book, Why LaBelle Matters, which is a masterpiece. And Adele, originally, I met her in like the late 70s. She was playing in the Contortions, her band, The Bloods. She sang for a lot of different people. She's up there. I mean, we've had so many great gals as well, rockers, artists. We had Lori Barbero of Babes in Toyland. We had recently Sydney of the Lunatics, who have a new book out, which is fantastic. Which,
Danita Sparks.
Danita Sparks. Also Gail Dorsey, who played with, bass with Bowie for a long time. And that's the female rockers. Now, John Dwyer recently, we've had him on. He got a hold of me thinking, I guess he saw the article in the New York Times about The War Is Never Over, my doc. And he goes, I'm getting tickets. And I'm like, no, that's New York. I'll be out in LA soon. Michael Imperioli.
Jerry Stahl. I mean, we're going down the list. I mean, yeah. What do you say?
Well, we've only had one ventriloquist on.
That's true. That's true.
Carla Rhodes.
I liked your conversation with Mark Ames because you had no expectations. You hadn't known him before. And somehow you guys had a nice little connection there. I don't know if it's writing or what. I
love political writers.
Yeah, geopolitical, global, geopolitical. I can't even say it.
Well, and also, Luke Sante recently, who I had never met, but he's written about me before, but he's, a master of writing about certain periods in New York. And also whether it's the early 1900s and writing from police photos, or also, he's covered the late 70s, 80s. He's just a fantastic writer and a human being. He was on recently. And I met him for the first time at the after party we had last week, which was fantastic.
Well, so one thing that has been kind of popular, and of course some of them have been, I think because of copyrights, have been shut down or something, but all of our holiday specials, and some of them, me and you do these kind of Siskel and Ebert song and music reviews with very eclectic mixes, a lot of things that we love, a lot of things we don't love, and I especially appreciated those ones because I just like to pick people's brains when it comes to how they observe other art and hearing other people's insights. It's just kind of.
Tim,
I like people with opinions. I like people with opinions and have reasons. I don't like apathy and indifference. So, and of course, we both have a lot of opinions. So it's always very fun.
Well, and you know my musical taste, and I know yours, but I know that when I don't like your musical taste, it's I know you have different reasons for liking it than I have for not liking it, which is always interesting to me. It's like, oh, the production, oh this, oh that, but to me, there's just some kinds of music, disco, unless it's Sylvester, late Rod Stewart, all kinds of things.
Well, the thing is, if you dedicate yourself to music, at least some of us, not all of us, but I could definitely, other peers in this world of music can relate to, at least to this point, is there's this weird relationship with good music and bad music that's almost, you're doing it so often that there's almost this kind of, you're kind of open to the experience of bad music because there's just so many elements and so many moving parts to even realize anyone's art, and just to even do that, you're aware of all these other elements, whether it's publicity, it's just so much shit. Okay, so when diving into some of the bad music, you start seeing the other angles of why it happens and then the perversions of it. It's just all that excites me, and I can enjoy all of it.
Tim, I can tell you're getting excited. I love delving into the perversion of anything, but have you ever, very rarely, unless I suggest that you or Dominica put it on, I rarely play music. at your house, you often play music, and there does come a point, usually late in the night, where you'll see the look on my face and realize
Oh, we know it.
you better change that fucking record. Because late at night, I want to hear something groovy.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of actually not the way the sequence goes. Usually early in the night, we're playing the good music.
Yeah.
And then
What, are
later,
you trying to drive me out?
And then no. It's about stirring the pot a little bit to kind of get a little aggro action going on.
Tim, when you stir my pot, what happens? I call a fucking car.
Not always. You spar and throw punches, and that's fun too.
Wait, now, Tim, all I need to do is flick a pinky in the right direction, and men will fall. You've seen it, men will fall. Doesn't it?
Well, so
I'm a lover and a fighter.
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much.
So last week, Ferris Bodwin, is that how you pronounce it? Yep.
Of the horrors.
Well, so going back to the beginning of this thing, we were all partying, or I was partying a lot because I had just so many events in the last 10 days. And that was on,
oh my God.
That was the night after one of my wild evenings. And I was still flying. Well, we can make a TV show, Stalker Texas Ranger, and have you ever seen Walker Texas Ranger with Chuck Norris?
No.
I suggest it. I suggest
cut.
it. I suggest it.
All right, that's got to go. All right, Tim. No reason to talk about him at all, please.
Very earnest.
That's for your own freaking podcast. We have no interest in that fucking freak, and this is being edited. So just get used to it. I have a feeling this might end up being a 10-minute long interview. So calm down. Tie it up. Tie yourself up, Timmy.
Whoa.
They don't usually go like this, Ferris.
All right. I surrender.
I'm going to run over to your house and tie you fucking. Tim, duct tape. 2 words. Thank you. All right. Ferris, back to you.
And I think anyone that's at all observant could figure that out.
Well, I mean, look, how many times did I have to tell you, take a Xanax, duct tape, volume? I mean, those are words I haven't had to use on you in a while. Usually it's on the 3rd night of a tour or the 6th hour that you're at my house.
But listen to it. I'm like, okay, I'm stuttering a little bit. My diction isn't so great. But
your psychic vacuity.
But yeah, there is this kind of weird. There's this weird, almost like speaking in tongues thing that I'm not even. Because I didn't even know where the stuff was coming out of my mouth. I didn't know where it was coming from. I really didn't.
It never comes out of your ass, Tim. That's all that counts. All I can say. It was, I guess, thrilled. What about the lovely and just so ever so charming? And I'm glad that you got to see why I've just adored Thurston Moore for so long.
Well, sure. Well, I'd hung with Thurston a couple of times, but I've never really known him,
Right.
And not saying that the interview, I really know him now, but what I really appreciated about that interview was just letting you two go, because you guys had such a long night, interesting and kind of beautiful history. It was just basically like sitting back. I was the listener on that one. I sat back and I was like, this is fun. You guys have so many stories that go so deep, and you obviously really care for each other. So it was just a really nice interview in general.
I mean, one thing I really adore about Thurston is he still has, and there's a part of me that I still have too. He's really still a teenager in some parts, a big part of him. He's not jaded. I don't feel I'm jaded at all, but he brings back this really spunky teenage vibe. And I love the smell of spunky teenagers.
Well, someone that we both know very well, and actually happens to be a pretty successful in terms of numbers wise episode, is the legendary Weasel Walter. And it's
speaking of spunky.
Well, I don't know. Where do I begin?
Where do I finish?
Now you're talking. And I'm psyched to be able to tour with him again this September.
Oh, he was so great the other night. He's always fucking fantastic. I love that after the first rehearsal, I'm like, oh, that sounded really great. And the occasionally humble, never arrogant enough for me, Weasel said, I still have some work to do. I'm like, oh my God, please. I mean, and he is the only one. He is the only guitar player that could go, and we don't cover Teenage Jesus anymore, but could play Robert Quine, Roland S. Howard, the Freaks in Eight Spy. Oh, I mean, he's the only one that can not only take the vibe, the energy, the essence of what they were, but take it even further into such glorious solos. And I mean, I have to say, the guitar solos are some of my favorite parts of Retrovirus. I mean, besides our little hookup, you, me, Tim, we've got, we're the groove section in a sense.
Well, that's rhythm section. Come on,
hey, that's what we got. Yeah. Move your ass and your head will follow. No, I don't think so.
Well, JG was a very successful.
JG Thurwell. I was just talking to him yesterday, and we're discussing putting out a compilation of our.
Ooh.
Well, they were all greatest hits. And it was with Thurwell that I covered "Don't Fear the Reaper." Why don't we do it in the road? And then one of my favorite albums I've ever made, Stinkfist Meltdown Oratorium. I mean, that record. I mean, first of all, A to B side are so different from each other. One just being a sex beat mantra, and the other being the most elaborate and early forms of illustrated, psychedelic, post-industrial spoken word. And, and also we had this great song that was also on the Don't Fear the Reaper EP. There was recently Simon got creeped out by this series, The Serpent, and it was based, the song we had called Serpentine, about a book we had read many years ago about this really sleazy, I just watched The Serpent or read the book, but the song is so breezy and sexy and light jazz, but it's speaking about this murderous motherfucker who just went all over Asia and Europe, picking up rich hippies and stealing their identity and their money. And oh my God, it's a great song and a great book and a great series. And if it creeps Simon Slater out, I know it's got to be good.
What did you think? I appreciated hearing you and Alex Ward speak. I don't know what it is. I kind of like watching you talking to these Brit boys. You kind of go into a different character with these guys.
Well, other than Alex Ward, most Brit boys, and we also had Bobby Gillespie, are much better dressed. I like an elegant man. Alex Ward needs a little loving, tender tidying up, but he's still an amazing musician. I don't know, really. I don't understand. Well, Tim, look, once I told you when you were at my house, Tim, the transistor radio of my mind is about to start spinning. You were like, huh? I'm like, you know what I mean? Because then I just, I let all of the party girls out at once. And oh my God, can anybody understand what I'm saying? Well, Weasel could occasionally. And even if he didn't, he's like, just carry on. I like that about him a lot.
Well, you introduced me to Vicky Galvez, who's a kind of a special person.
She's an amazing writer. She's like a cultural satirist. She's been around in the early days of hip hop, working on videos with Run DMC, and she introduced me to Debbie Mazar and Vince Gallo and also BC Studios, which she was part of in the early days, which everybody recorded at. And her readings are great. I mean, I've done some readings with her in the past. I wrote my screenplay with her, which I'm still trying to get Owen Klein to maybe produce, another great guest on recently, whose own feature-length film is coming out very soon. He came to see the documentary.
Yes, he did.
Well, he might move further away from me than he already lives. I'm not sure. Or maybe he'll just cuddle up closer.
Is he moving upstate?
No, I'm just saying he already moved.
All right.
I'm not going to disclose the location, but I'm saying that maybe after that, he's going to come knocking on my door. He's going to never talk to me again. I'm not sure. Yeah. Fayette Hauser.
Oh, yeah.
Remember of the Coquettes? I mean, yes. That was great. Look, I like to talk to anybody from any generation that, once again, has lived their life creatively, does not fucking care what anybody thinks, carries on, and is still enthusiastic about stuff. And that's everybody we've just named. And that's everybody that's been on this podcast. People that still have a curiosity, that still are creating, and that aren't going to stop.
Correct. Including ourselves.
The 2-year anniversary. Episode number 104, the Lydian Spin. Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, our producer, Simon Slater. If you need to know more, there's 104 episodes, motherfuckers. Next week. See you then.